Hi guys, Shane here again. Just got my hands on paper 2 today. So I just said I'd do a video with you here, I suppose, with my reaction to the paper. So let's jump straight into it then. So obviously we're going to start with the Leibhishkent 50 mark. We know this year we only had to do one of two, but we're going to look at both. First thing I notice is on first reading comprehension, Leibhishkent A, is that it's about a person, which is really good because last year there was no person on the exam. We know when there's a person on the exam, there's a certain type of 6B question, which means they're looking for two traits of the person that we see in the comprehension itself. So I was delighted with that. I know my own group had studied really hard on those characteristics, on those traits, so that's great to see that it actually came up. Looking at the comprehension themselves and speaking to other students as well, you know, they felt they were very fair and they're very manageable. The answers were quite long. There was actually a lot to write in the answers, but when it came to understanding them, they didn't find them too difficult, which was great. Leibhishkent B then was Skelta Umlin Fihe stories from the year 2020, which is absolutely perfect. Look, a lot of us would have done essays on the year 2020 and coronavirus. You know, you would have had stuff about Black Lives Matter, about climate change as well. All the big stories, you know, from 2020, which is nearly like an essay topic yesterday. And again, if you had that essay learnt and if you had prepared it with us here at the school, you know, you had all the stuff there prepared in advance. You knew a lot of the hard vocabulary. And then when we come down to the 6A and the 6B question, Kunasachug and Schluckshow Weimert, how did this piece impact you? Again, you know, a question that would have been prepared, and you kind of should know to expect that type of question now for 6B. 6As for both of them, look, they were both fine. 6A for the first comprehension, Brihir Sair and the Mo Kani, look, very manageable, very achievable. And for the second comprehension, the future tense Brihir Sair and Anamukos Tishal Ginaduk Uha, that probably a little bit harder, may have swayed more people to do the first comprehension, but we know if you get one of the 6A parts right, you get 2 out of 3 marks. So overall, very happy with the comprehensions. Very manageable, very fair is the main thing, and I think students will be very happy with those. Moving on to the prose. I don't believe that many students would have done the prose section this year. I think that more students were leaning towards the poetry and Iliach. But to look at the prose first of all anyway, look, both of these prose would have been tipped. There was no surprise that Tiernan Og and Dish appeared on the paper. First question for Tiernan Og, I thought it was quite fair. It was nice. It talks about Gra, so if I was a student myself, I would have circled Gra on the exam first of all, and then there was a little bit to it. Usually, and in the past with Oisín, in the past with the questions, we've seen 3 separate small questions and you would have done 2 of them. This year we had a long question on Oisín. So the first question said, you know, his love for Niamh, his díoseach da Ahar, his loyalty to his father, and Nafina. So obviously you would have good stuff prepared with Oisín falling in love with Niamh. You know, he leaves everyone to go with Niamh. He has the children with her, they're married, they're very happy. And the díoseach, maybe you might say, well, how did he show loyalty? Well, he returns first of all to Ireland to see Fionn, to see Nafina, and not only that, when he realises that they've all died, he still brings St. Patrick around to all the different areas, all the locations, and tells them stories about Nafina, showing his loyalty to them to keep their memory alive. So they're the areas you would be looking at there. For the second question, for Dish, you were asked to Tugtar Lera doing her Hail Ban Hian, agus an Chunakar vi Egg Court Ban on Turvey or he Sigarscale Dish. So the first part of that is the view we get of Sean's wife's life. That is a very common question. All students would have that prepared. So again, nice and fair. And then it says the influence or the impact of that visit. So what would that show? The lack of understanding, the lack of communication, as for Tishkana, as for Cummersada, between them. And I suppose that leads to the equivalent, the argument, the tensions. So that's what we're looking for there, guys. Again, 2 lovely questions. If you did prose, 2 great questions. Moving on to Kesh Iver 3 on Iliach, the poetry. Everyone, I think, and the dogs in the streets knew that either Gavin or Kulskar was going to appear in the paper, and we would have said that to our students. But not only that, a big one that I was very fond of this year was in Spalt being Fánach, and both appeared in the paper. Gavin came up. I think Gavin is everyone's favourite poem in the course. It's probably the simplest, so I would imagine 90% of students went for Gavin this year. First question was phrased in a very long, windy, kind of meandering manner. Realistically, when you see Cuddersnook there, you know, that should have, you know, cracked a smile on your face. That's the question that we all prepare for. And it says the contrast between the type of life tra, meaning once, and anish is now. Tra is in the poem as well, so you know that was a nice word to use. So basically the contrast between the lines life now and what it was. With that in mind, you might have brought in some, you know, techniques like parson too, stuff like that. Ivana, Tama, they would all, you know, have been lovely to bring into that, you know, 15 mark question. Question 2 usually is about emotion or how it impacted you. This year it was about, is it a suitable title? We know Gaven means captivity. So, for a poem about the zoo, absolutely. So a lot of the time you'd be looking to bring in Ábhar an Dán, the subject of the poem, and the subject is suitable to the title. And we would have kind of looked at that during the year. So again, I was very happy with that. A different way to phrase it than normal, but a very fair and a very manageable question. And the last one is the Old Faithful, the poet and the life of the poet. Again, you know that or you don't. No surprises there. It's nearly like a banker for students at this stage. Moving on to the Spalpeen Fauna question. It's a much harder poem, but again, it's something that I was really happy with. I would have told students to do this poem, even though it's a harder poem. The question was much simpler. The first question tends to be about, if you look back over past years, it's about the life of the Spalpeen and the life in Ireland at that time. So talking about the hardship, cruachas, that type of stuff there, fulling, the suffering the Spalpeen had, which kind of represents maybe, life in Ireland at that time. Lovely, lovely question. Paragraph about each verse, you're laughing. Muhukanis Mo, the strongest emotion, Muscly and Doncha understanding that's brought up in you. Again, you could pick anything there from Dima, Farag, Ina, disappointment, anger, surprise. So your reaction to reading the poem and why you felt that way. Again, a very common question, very fair question. And we know there's no poet for this. So instead of the poet question, we tend to see a question on Miadrucht, which is the meter of the poem. And again, students would have had that prepared because it's a very, very common question for this poem. Probably the nicest question on the paper. Very, very manageable. I know students don't like the poem because it's hard, but you couldn't get more straightforward than that. For the last section, we're going to look at Ceshte Cahar and Litríocht Fresha, the extra literacy question. At the school here, we study 2. We kind of focus in on 2 here. On Trial and the Higna Hitcher. I'm going to start with on Trial. It's my preferred one. This question on Trial was probably the nicest question in years. It says, in this drama on Trial, Tuchtar Lera doing Chas and Chalín Og on the case of a young girl and the situation of a young girl, Moira Ní gives her name. Nura Yultin Glord and Adini Timpler, when many of the people around her, Jultin is the verb to refuse, to give her help in a time of need. So, that many of the people around her refuse to help her, i.e., can you name 5 or 6 characters and tell me how they influenced her life in a negative manner? Show me when they didn't help her. Very similar to the question last year about society and not helping, single mothers and society being hypocritical. So very, very similar question, but I'm looking for 4, 5, 6 characters and how they negatively impacted her life or maybe refused to help her. And again, getting the words of the question in there. Very, very fair. Really nice question. Higna Hitcher question was about that it was an enjoyable account of the things that he did with his community and while he was growing up in the Gaeltacht. And again, we're talking about the football, the ceol, all the Cahavimshri and the enjoyable aspects that he had to his life there. Very, very basic question. They're not trying to catch you out there. So overall, guys, I would be absolutely thrilled with this paper. And I feel that if you've done any of the things that I've mentioned here on the video today, I would be really confident and well done. Congratulations on finishing your paper. Wish you the best of luck in the rest of the exams. Thanks.